Welcome back to Bird Dog Gaming. I've realized that I cannot make any more videos without first getting this one out. I have seen so many comments and discussions from the typical game collector who just has no idea what I'm thinking when I talk about collecting video games in my videos. Therefore, it is time for me to explain my thought process. This is the video I'm going to reference from here on out whenever I need someone to understand my rationale. There's a major issue going on with video game collecting as a hobby, and it's something that I've been talking about for years. We are merging two hobbies into one. Playing video games is completely separate from collecting them. This is what we're here to talk about today. The other day I made a short form video about how Okami HD prices are going up because in my eyes the truly collectible version of the game should be either the PS2 copy because it's the original release, or maybe the Wii copy because it's really the version that I feel is more synonymous with this game's legacy. But this particular comment from my Instagram reel has this dude essentially saying, "You're out of your mind, why would someone want to have the mid-2000s standard definition version of the game when they could just play it on a PS4 with beautiful remastered graphics and it's forwards compatible on PS5, making it so much more accessible." Now, it's so obvious to this individual why someone would want to own the modern, easily accessible version over the PS2 version, because he wants to play his games. But I know he's also a step above just being a typical gamer because he specifically comments that the physical is the way to go, never digital. Please understand me when I say that this video is not about this comment. It has not been spurred by it. It is just one of the hundreds of examples that I am constantly scrolling through on Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. At the end of the day, this hobby is made up of this type of person, and I'm going to tell you why I think that is. I like to read comic books. I'd say that is incredibly uncommon in the year 2025. And I'm not a freaking hipster, but listen, I don't have a single friend in my life that reads comic books in the year 2025. But I'm willing to bet that you know at least a couple of guys who collect comic books. Maybe you're that guy. I used to be that guy. In fact, I still have a couple hundred comics from my pre-video game collecting days. Now let me tell you a little more about my hobby of reading comic books. I'm not sitting around flipping through the few hundred amazing Spider-Man issues in my collection, reading them in a physical format. I subscribe to Marvel Unlimited, which is basically Netflix for Marvel Comics. You have tens of thousands of issues at your fingertips for one annual subscription fee, and here's the really interesting thing. A lot of times I will simply read comics on the app that I own physically. Why is that? Because I would prefer to open an app where I can see a beautifully scanned book on a device that is always glued to me rather than go to the other room, dig through my comic boxes to find the issue, and sit down with it in my lap flipping through the pages. First of all, if it happens to be a $200 comic, why on earth would I want to risk taking it out of the box, taking it out of its protective case, and potentially ripping the pages while I'm reading it? Why would I do that? And then there's the comfort factor. It's just not going to be enjoyable. I'm going to be concerned about damaging it, so I'm not even going to be laying in bed or reclined on the couch. So now this relaxing evening turns into me sitting straight up 90 degrees with a lamp at my desk. I feel like I'm losing some of y'all, so let me drive the point home. Not a single person on planet Earth that has purchased an Incredible Hulk 181 in the last 30 years purchased it primarily as a comic book to read. And that is a fact. This is the first appearance of Wolverine and released in 1974, and whether you purchased it in 1995 or 2025, you bought this item first and foremost as a collectible for your collection. That was your intent. Now notice I said the words primarily and first and foremost and intent. This is essential to the point I'm trying to make here, especially the word intent. Am I saying that no one who purchased Hulk 181 in the last 30 years has read it? Am I saying every single collector who picked this up just threw it in a box or mounted it on the wall and never intends to read it? No, I'm not saying that, though more than 75% of these people probably have no intention of ever opening that physical book and reading through it. This book is valuable in every condition. It's a key issue that is important to pop culture history, and most importantly, collectors want to retain the condition they purchased an item in. What I am saying is this book was purchased with the full intent of adding to a collection, and if 25% of the people who own this also happen to read the physical book, it was not their primary intention. In fact, many of them read the book prior to owning it physically. Most individuals who wanted to read this book in the last 30 years either read it online, on an app, on an illegal website, or got a re-release of it and read it that way. Yeah, that's right, just like Okami HD on the PS4. Comic publishers love to re-release iconic issues of their books because it makes the item more accessible to people who don't have hundreds of dollars to blow on a first print. A comic book collector is the person who bought the Hulk 181 with the full intent of adding it to his collection, and maybe someday he happens to sit down at a desk with gloves on and read it. A comic book reader is the guy who purchased a Hulk 181 with the intention of reading it. Both of these people might have collections of comic books. Both of these people might read this book. However, the intention is what sets them apart here. And I know some of y'all are already typing up comments to yell at me right now, but I need you to just take a deep breath. I want to clarify real quick that I am not gatekeeping. I am not gatekeeping, and also I am not gatekeeping. I truly don't care what you do with your games. I don't care if you collect loose cartridges, and I don't care if you're a sealed or graded games collector. I just need the definitions to be clear. Now, Okami on Wii and PS2 is dirt common and dirt cheap. I mean, it's like $15 and $25 respectively. But the majority of this hobby believes it is made up of people who are collectors, going as far as to name their subreddit r/game collecting and their Facebook groups video game collectors. But how many of them are purchasing the Okami on PS2 as a collectible versus the people who are going to purchase the Okami HD because it's the better version? The instant you start talking to me about graphics, performance, accessibility, or anything else that has to do with the playability of a game, you have stopped talking about the collectability. You aren't talking about a video game collecting topic anymore. You're talking about a video game playing topic. If someone says, yeah, I just bought that Hulk 181 comic, you'd be like, holy crap, that's an awesome piece that hasn't been printed in 50 years. It's so historically important. What an incredible item for your shelf. And then all of a sudden they respond like, wait, what? This came out in 2019 and cost me $5. I wanted to read it because I've never read it before. And then you realize that this person did not purchase this item as a collectible. They purchased it for its original intent, which is fine. I cannot stress this enough. I know someone is still going to comment like, wow, so you're saying games aren't meant to be played? Please play your games, I don't care, but when you purchase a $22 remaster of a 20-year-old game because you really want to play it, you are not collecting that specific item. You are purchasing an item for its original intent. There's so many people on Reddit like, here's my collection of Switch games, and it's just a bunch of pictures of the games they bought to play. And it's like, yes, the definition of collection is literally a group of things. So you're right, you do have a collection of Switch games, but there are also millions of people who own a collection of Switch games that aren't video game collectors. They just purchase video games physically because they like playing video games and they prefer to buy them at a real life store rather than digitally. If we just started calling everything we buy for its original intent a collection, we would be insane. I just bought trash bags for the kitchen the other day. I have a collection of trash bags, so I'm a trash bag collector. I just got a pack of number 2 pencils and I can't wait to go on r/pencil collecting and show off my collection tonight. No, that is not how it works. You can be a collector if you want to. For the love of God, please don't misconstrue what I'm saying here. You're welcome to call yourself whatever the heck you want, but I don't believe every person who purchases video games is a collector. Even if you're buying childhood favorites to play again, and even if those childhood favorites cost you hundreds of dollars each, and even if you're placing those childhood favorites on a nice, clean shelf, I don't think that makes you a collector. I literally have a coworker who is buying every Pokemon game right now, playing them and completing all of the Pokédexes, and he will be the first to tell you he is not a video game collector. He is just buying old software that isn't sold in stores anymore. Despite the fact that he is spending thousands of dollars to acquire these items, it doesn't make him a collector. Alright, that was a lot. Everyone take a breather. Don't dislike the video. Don't unsubscribe. Just take a deep breath. I think the majority of people are double dipping. People are saying Okami HD is a game I want for my collection, but I also want to play it, so maybe I'll just buy the remaster and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Because why would a person buy Okami on PS2 for $25 when they could just buy the objectively superior version on their modern platform that's already hooked up? In case it's still not clear, Okami HD is the 2019 version of Hulk 181, and Okami on PS2 is the 1974 version of Hulk 181. Okami HD is not the original thing. Okami on Wii is technically not even the original thing, and when you aren't focused on playing your games and getting the best experience, You want the earliest, most original version of the game. A lot of you still won't understand this because the vast majority of you don't care if you have a made in Japan or made in Mexico box. You don't care if your Mario Brothers has a circle seal or an oval seal, and that's fine, it really is. I have plenty of later print versions in my collection. I am not here to gatekeep and tell you that your later print games are bad, but the most collectible version will always be the earlier print and the original version. I don't make the rules. This is just simply how collectibles work. Look at Pokemon cards. The first edition shadowless is what people want. A few years ago, there were modern Pokemon cards that started coming out that looked nearly identical to the original base set, but they're worthless because everyone wants the actual thing, not a clone. The 2019 Hulk 181 re-release is not only a fraction of the price of the original collectible item, but it's also probably printed on way nicer paper and the colors absolutely pop more, so you will objectively have a better reading experience than on the original release of this comic, which is the same as saying Okami HD is going to look and feel better than the PS2 original. But it doesn't matter. It's not about the quality of the gameplay. It's not about the accessibility or how many frames per second you're getting. It's about owning the original item. The PS2 version of Okami is the game that started it all for this particular franchise. It's the game that is objectively more important and collectible than the PS4 game that is still being printed and can be bought brand new from Video Games Plus Canada as we speak. In other words, the PS4 copy is great for players, not for collectors. Comic books are much older than video games and have matured as a collectible. They are decades in the making, and video games are still this form of media that people believe are meant to be used for their original intent. And to maybe drive this point home even further, maybe I should share that I am someone who plays my games. I literally played through Okami in 2024 on the Wii with a CRT, but the primary reason I bought and held on to that game for the last decade was because it was a collectible for my video game collection. Being able to play it is more of a bonus. Now, someone could go on eBay right now and buy that game for 15 bucks shipped with the complete intention of playing that game. They don't even have to be a collector. Maybe they have a Wii sitting in their bedroom hooked up and ready to go, and this is just something they want to play. Does that make them a collector? Because he purchased an old piece of out-of-print media in the year 2025? No, it doesn't. So what if this person decides they want to become a video game collector? Does Okami not count towards their collection because their original intent was to play the game? Are you saying that individual has to go repurchase the game with the correct intention? Obviously that's not what I'm saying, so if you're typing that comment up right now, you can just stop. Look, the situation I just described is how we all started collecting. None of us woke up one day and said, I want a room full of ancient, dusty cartridges. No, we started out saying, wow, I want to play that old game I missed out on back in 2006 and I still have my old Wii. Maybe I'll just buy it and play it. So maybe you're sitting here listening to this video thinking that you're maybe a perfect 50-50. You're thinking maybe your intent is completely divided down the middle, with 50% of your reason being you want to play the game and 50% being you want to own the game. So answer this for yourself. Do you purchase games that you never intend to play? Do you have games on your shelf that you literally only purchase because you know it's a rare or cool piece for your collection? The thing about this is you don't have to be one or the other with every game in your collection, and this is especially true for your modern stuff that you're picking up every month. You purchased that Mario Odyssey in 2017 because you wanted to play it straight up, but you might have also picked up a copy of Superman 64 that year with absolutely no intention of ever playing it. One of these items was purchased as a collectible that will literally never be played. But even if you did play Superman 64 one day, it wouldn't erase your collector status. It just means that you're getting some bonus use out of your collectibles. Comics are way more fragile than games. I mean, if you pop Superman 64 into your N64, the worst that could happen is maybe you drop the cartridge on the way to putting it into the console. And let me tell you, those cartridges could just about survive a bomb. They're so freaking sturdy. Therefore, comics and video games aren't a perfect analogy. But on another note, I just don't understand why no one is getting mad about comic book collectors who just purchase a copy of Hulk 181 and keep it closed for eternity. Why is that any different from someone picking up a sealed copy of Okami on PS2 and never opening it? Or better yet, why is that any different than getting a shadowless Charizard and keeping it sealed in its PSA slab for eternity? Honestly, that's a whole tangent conversation we could have, but if you take nothing else from this video, at least take this. If you're going to be mad at one hobby for keeping games sealed, you have to be mad at coin collectors for not spending their money, sneakerheads for not wearing their shoes, and at freaking comic book collectors for not reading their comic books. Be consistent with your hatred, I'm begging you, otherwise your argument doesn't make an ounce of sense. Let's end this video with some examples of the difference between the two hobbies, playing video games and collecting video games. Examples of playing video games. Number 1, playing a video game. That's the first example. Number 2, discussing the plot, gameplay, setting, music. These are all playing video game examples here. Posting on Reddit asking which version you should play because you've heard that one version has some extra levels, but you've heard that the other version performs better. Now let's talk about some examples of collecting video games. Purchasing a video game because you want to put it on the shelf. You may or may not ever play it. Either way, you're allowed to do that. Researching variants. I bring this up because if you ever go on Reddit and see a person asking about which version of a game they should collect, you will undoubtedly see multiple responses talking about, well, this version of the game plays way better than this version, and this version has the DLC included, and this one came with a bonus character skin, when in all actuality, none of these things have anything to do with collecting. Here's a big one. Looking at the condition of a game you intend to buy. So many people will go to the retro game store and just purchase a childhood game in any condition because they don't care what it looks like as long as it's authentic and plays on their console. This is completely different than someone going in looking for a copy of Superman 64 and inspecting every little detail of that thing. Whether you collect loose or complete, you are looking for a certain bare minimum on your game that you are willing to accept for your collection, and a giant rip down the middle of the artwork might be where you say no. Do you see how these two consumers are participating in completely different hobbies while also shopping for the same general item? And that last example is exactly where the issue lies. The Venn diagram of collectors and players is overlapping so much right now that we have players getting pissed at collectors because players can't afford to play games like Panzer Dragoon Saga. Because the demand is driven up by people who want to play the game and who want to collect the game, we can't all have the game because supply is too low. This is why you see discourse in communities online. Gamers see that collectors have a copy of a game that they just want sitting there collecting dust with little to no intention of ever playing it, and that seems so unfair to them that they take their anger out on the collector. It's a valid thing to be upset about, but it's not valid to take that out on the collector who's participating in a completely different hobby than you. I think this is why more and more gamers in these collecting groups are getting priced out of this hobby. It's sad, but both sides are driving up the demand, and unfortunately the players' side have the alternative to go emulate things when they get too expensive, whereas collectors are insane people who just keep spending more and more money on these collectibles with seemingly no cap. Looking at myself here. Look, I really hope you got something out of this video. I'm trying to advance this hobby a little bit with this video and explain some things to people who may not be familiar with other collectible hobbies. I would love to have some actual fruitful discussion in the comments. I'm not a stubborn person, so if you want to go back and forth, as long as you're being respectful, I'm totally here for it. You can also join my Discord if you think that'd be a better place to chat. Big shout out to the amazing channel members who support me every month with donations. I can't thank y'all enough, and I'll see all of y'all next time right here on Bird Dog Gaming.